Yash, can you hear me? Usually I have to unmute myself, so I don't.
Are we good? Calling order. Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the statement of values. Secretary Bhatnagar, if you could read the statement of values. Commissioner Bhatnagar is not hearing. Can he hear us? Commissioner Bhatnagar, are you on? I see him standing. Okay. We're going to read the statement of values, if it's here. I don't think commissioners can hear me either.
I understand. I'm
Okay.
just going to have to do something.
Got it.
Commissioner Cherukuru, I can hear you, but sometimes there's a lot of echo.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Could you read the statement of values?
Yes. Statement of values. As we gather, we humbly seek blessings upon this meeting. May we act with strength, courage, and will to perform our obligations and duties to our people with justice to all. Let us seek wisdom so that we may act in the best interest of our people, our neighbors, and our country. All this we ask so we may serve our community with fairness and respect, putting their needs before all.
Thank you, Commissioner Bhatnagar. Please have a seat. We now do the roll call. Elizabeth, please call for the roll.
Commissioner Bhatnagar,
Aye.
Commissioner Biagini, Chair Cherukuru,
Yes.
Commissioner Hero, Commissioner Wang,
Yes.
Commissioner Buza,
Present.
Commissioner Salim.
Here.
Thank you.
We do have a quorum, but we need to have a motion to excuse the absent members, Commissioner Biagini and Commissioner Harrow. Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to excuse Commissioner Biagini and Commissioner Harrow.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bhatnagar, your vote,
Aye.
please. Thank you. Chair Cherukuru,
Yes.
Commissioner Wang,
Yes.
Commissioner Buza,
Yes.
Commissioner Salim.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Thank you. We'll now move to the next section, Declaration of Commission Procedures. Secretary Bhatnagar, if you could read out the procedures for this meeting.
Yes. Be a second, so I roll it up. Declaration of Commission Procedures. Public hearings are conducted by the chair in accordance with the following procedures. The chair of the commission directs all activity during the hearings. All comments shall be addressed to the commission. Any item on this agenda may be continued to a subsequent hearing. Applicants will be allocated up to 10 minutes to present and justify proposals. Following staff presentation of the item, other speakers will be given up to 2 minutes. The applicant is allocated up to 5 minutes for rebuttal of comments. No additional comments will be accepted upon the close of the public hearing, although the commission reserves the right to direct questions to any speaker on any matter. Special procedures time limits may be applied to any items as prescribed by the chair. And lastly, appeal of the commission actions must be filed in writing within 7 calendar days. And
Thank
those
you.
are the procedures.
Thank you, Commissioner Bhatnagar. Copies of the current agenda and staff reports for each of the items on the agenda are available from the Planning Division office on the Friday afternoon preceding the meeting and available online. We move to the next order on the meeting, continuances and exceptions. This part of the meeting allows for applicants, members of the public, or other interested parties to request an item to be 1, continued without hearing, 2, withdrawn, or 3, taken out of order. Are there any requests from applicants, the public, or the commission for a continuance or exception for any of the items on tonight's agenda?
Chair, we have no requests.
Thank you. When the Planning Commission, which has a full quorum of 7 members, is not present, applicants have the option to continue their item to another meeting. Are there any items that have been requested to be, okay?
No.
Moving now to consent calendar. We have 3 items on the consent calendar today, of which I do not have the notes here. Oh, yeah. Commissioner Bhatnagar, would you be able to read the consent calendar items?
Yes. There are 3 items on the consent calendar. Item 1A is the Planning Commission meeting minutes of September 21, 2022 special meeting. Item 1B is action on use permit to allow an outdoor play area for an expanding preschool facility at 1041 and 1075 El Camino Real. And item number 3, 1C, is action to approve a use permit to allow on-site sale and consumption of beer and wine for an existing food service establishment, Swaraj, India, at 1855 El Camino Real, Santa Clara, 95050. This is continued from the September 21, 2022 Planning Commission meeting.
So we have 3 items on consent calendar. I have a question to City Attorney. If I have a question, should I just pose it now? It's a very minor question to allow the consent calendar, or should I pull it off the consent calendar for the question?
Yeah, you should, if you have a question on one of the items, you should pull it first.
Okay, I would like to pull item 1B off the consent calendar. Do we have a motion to approve the planning minutes 1A and the use permit on for ABC license clearance 1C?
Okay, I'll move to approve 1A and 1C on the consent calendar.
I'd like to
Second.
All in favor?
We'll take a vote, just a moment.
Okay,
To get it up on the screen, it takes a moment.
thanks.
Commissioner Bhatnagar,
Yes.
Chair Chirukuru,
Yes,
Commissioner Wang,
Yes.
Commissioner Buza,
Yes.
Commissioner Salem.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
thank you. So now do we hear 1B? Okay. This project was, it's, a relatively simple project. It is to allow a use permit to enable outdoor play area for an expanding preschool facility at 1041 and 1075 El Camino Real. The use permit is enabled already for the preschool facility. The use permit now is only for the outdoor play area. I noticed a very interesting condition of approval, which is to execute private parking agreement for parking space requirements for this facility. Can staff help explain what it is and how do they execute the private parking agreement and with whom?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The preschool property, it's actually 2 separate parcels. And so because the use is going to be on both parcels, we want to make sure that one parcel is not sold off and then the other half of the preschool loses its parking. So just to maintain that parking relationship.
That's interesting. So each are legal
Parcels, correct.
legal parcels.
Yes.
Will there be still
There'll still be a property line down the center of it.
but no fence?
Correct.
The contiguous is just
Correct, yes. And the parking for the preschool is based on both buildings because it's by classroom, right? So we just want to make sure that the parking is still available if for some reason they sold off half the preschool.
So if they were to do that and we ensure that the parking is not impacted, how would it impact the use permit on the open outdoor area?
It wouldn't affect the outdoor play area
Because it's contained?
because it's on one of the properties.
Okay, but it would reduce the total number of
parking spaces, correct.
It would reduce based on the delta or
Right.
drop in the
Right.
number of classrooms and students.
Correct.
Interesting.
I-
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I'd like to make a statement. I have a question too regarding this. Since they're going to, I'm very familiar with a property there. Parking is an issue there because you have a laundromat in the corner and also the Portuguese bakery, which is, the parking is constant. Not only that, you have a lot of vagrants laying on the sidewalks right in front of the school. And there's a lot of, a couple of big accidents that's happened there in the last few months. So for school, I'm kind of like, But if they're going to be doing the parking, only 4 parking spaces, and it's supposed to be for the staff, what are they going to do then for the parents that are picking up the children in and out? Because they're going to have quite a bit of traffic probably coming in and out there. So that's going to be another issue there. So I just think there's going to be something we're going to have to work out. And those also next door, there's a development that is coming up soon. I think it's already been approved quite a few years ago. So that's probably going to be happening, and it's going to demand a lot of parking. So I think that location is kind of, it's an iffy situation there. One more thing too, if they're going to be building a playground, that's asphalt. In the back, is there going to be any issues with chemicals from tar and so on to build a playground? I don't think it's going to be kind of safe, especially with cars going in and out next to a playground. It's little red flags, and I hate to be one of the ones that will approve something like this.
Staff, do you want to respond?
Sorry. Would the chair like for the applicant is in the audience, as well as the project manager who could probably speak to some of these items? Would you like to go ahead and have them do a presentation?
Okay, let me see if any other commissioners have any questions of staff before we go to the applicant to present their information. I don't see any hands up. Elizabeth, tee me up if I'm missing. Okay.
I actually had a question.
I'm sorry.
But I want to hear the presentation, and then I'd like to ask.
Okay. I'd like to invite the applicant. I don't know if there's a presentation since it was consent calendar, but we'll give them a choice. Is the applicant for this project in the room or online?
They are online, but we do have our staff here. I believe, Daniel, do you have something to show for the planning commissioners prior to the applicant speaking?
You betcha.
Yeah.
Let me just open it up.
Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Daniel Subcheck, planner for City Santa Clara. And so the use permit in front of you today is for 1041, 1075 Amino Boulevard, and it is to allow a outdoor play area in the rear of the school. So it is a existing school. Currently, the existing school is on this right-hand side parcel, and the play area right now is currently indoors. And as you see on this map, here are the 2 parcels. Please note that there is quite a bit of street parking as well. And behind the parcel is single family. So the outdoor player is going to be about 1,282 square feet, and it will be fenced off on all sides. And the applicant has applied to expand, and expanding the preschool will mean that she will need to expand the play area from just being indoors to being the outdoor play area as well. So I know that there is some questions about the play area maybe being near the site here on the right-hand side. It will be fenced in, so there shouldn't be any issues on that side, but the applicant is here and she can elaborate further. The analysis that the planning department has done is that the permit would align with our GP as well as with the zoning. And the off-street parking is 1 space per classroom. And unfortunately, I don't have the classroom site plan on here, but there are 2 classrooms in each structure. And so that does mean that they are required to have 4 off-street parking spaces, which they have proposed. And staff's recommendation is to adopt a resolution to approve. I hope that answers some of the questions. If not, I can always answer them one by one as well, and the applicant is here.
I have a question, unless other commissioners have a question.
Go first.
To follow back on the question that I had, you mentioned that there are 4 off-street parking agreement. How will you execute on an off-street parking agreement?
Sure. So the off-street parking agreement is a standard agreement that the planning department has. We currently do most of it for the stadium for those off-street lots. But this is a unique case where they are 2 separate lots, and the owner of the lot wanted to maintain the 2 separate lots instead of the 1 lot. And so the idea was to make sure that the lots would always have the off-street, or would always meet the off-street parking requirements.
That's what I'm still confused.
Yeah.
How do you enforce on an off-street when it's not in the control of the owner?
Yeah.
I could park there.
Sure. So there is a gate for the parking. Let me show that site plan again. So is it your concern that people may be parking that are not part of the school, or I'm not completely sure of the
Yes.
question.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
we are concerned
there-
that there will be more parking demand than this current site offers, and that the 4 that is part of an execution contract agreement, I'd like to understand how you implement it.
So the parking agreement was a suggestion by the planning department to hopefully help the applicant meet their requirements, which per code is the 4 off-street spaces. And we do see the 4 off-street spaces here, one being a ADA. And there is a large fence here that can open and close for when the faculty comes in or faculty leaves. So this will be exclusively for faculty or whomever else the school instructor is allowed to park there, which could be somebody that's inspecting, or it could be X, Y, and Z. So that's the idea.
So the 4 is on-site,
Yes.
not off-site.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I was saying off-street parking is in,
Oh,
there
I
is
see.
street parking, but off-street parking
Got it,
being
got it.
on-site parking.
Got it.
Sorry about
Okay,
that.
thank you. Yes, and now I'm aligned. Thank you for helping me. Okay, and so, okay, that makes sense. But I want to make then sure that the traffic is controlled, because you have 2 sides and the driveway is right smack between the 2. Am I envisioning the parking scenario that people are going to try to drive in when the schools are operating?
I am not completely sure on when the faculty members will be driving in and driving out. I'm assuming that it will be before school starts and after school ends, but I will
Okay.
I'll let the applicant answer that one.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Boozer?
Yes. I wonder what time of the day you took this picture, because there's no traffic on the El Camino. I'd like to be there. I could be walking down the street. But one of the things is, I can see even by your own picture here, there's not going to be any parking, because in the corner, that's going to be a whole development that we're going to be having up in there. And not only that, you're going to, like our chairperson mentioned, that driveway there, you're going to have people driving in, and then how you're going to make turns when you have 4 cars already from staff in there. So I see this as, I just cannot conceive how this even came about, having a preschool in right there. I just can't believe it. I just can't believe it. So I think you're going to have a problem with parking, especially when the parents start coming in there trying to drop their children. And, I just can't believe that. But I go by there every day, maybe 2-3 times a day. So I'm very familiar with that location and that area. So I never seen that gate even closed either. So I don't know.
Sure. So currently, the other structure on the lot is not a preschool. So this permit would allow this structure here to also be part of the preschool. And then they would also add that retractable gate or so they haven't done any of this yet, but they're hoping to. And I believe that the parking spaces here are strictly for faculty or maybe for a mom or dad that just runs quickly in, quickly out. But this has all been reviewed and approved by engineering and traffic. And I believe that most of the pickup drop off would be from on street. And like all of us as well, we pass by this every day. So yeah, it's definitely a street that has cars on it. But I do believe that the pickup and drop off would meet the city's standards.
Commissioner.
Hello?
Okay.
So the
We'll give you a chance if you're the applicant. I have just one more clarification. Commissioner Lance, were you going to say something or no? Okay, got it. Okay, we'll let the applicant speak now.
so there is the entrance gate always closed right now. In the picture, I think the picture was taken a long time ago. I put the gate maybe like 4 or 5, 6 months ago. So it's working really well. And the parents drop off time will take only like 5 to like 15 minutes in the morning around 8:30. Or and then drop off also takes 5 to like 10 or 15 minutes, longest maybe 15 minutes. So couple parents come together and then leave, something like that. So it wouldn't be trouble so much. With the bakery, and then they don't stay long. The customers don't stay long. They just pick up the bread and they leave. So I think it will work because we don't have many classroom right now, and in the future, and also. So that's what I was figuring out and planning. So with the entrance gate, I think it's completely fine. Having the 4 designated parking spaces in the indoor inside.
Commissioner Lance.
Things. I guess it's my turn. I share some of the concerns that Commissioner Boza has on the safety of the drop-off and pickup as the number of students may increase. But the majority of my concern would be opening doors and safety onto El Camino. I had hoped to have an opportunity to ask about this, but it fell off my radar. I'm sorry. Could there be any hope of notching the sidewalk to create a loading zone inset and therefore moving some of the sidewalk into the easement on the property so that the cars, 3 or 4 cars, could be out of the main, even the main parking space of El Camino, and allow for safer opening and closing of doors? It's a simple question, but I didn't pursue it. Thank you.
Commissioner Boza.
Yeah. Furthermore, I got a question. I believe that's El Camino's state. It's a state highway, so that has to be part of the state to approve that. But one of the things too that is important is that's a major bus line in there. So the buses come through that right lane. They don't sit in the center or the left lane. They fly through there. And I've been sometimes when I've gone to the bakery, and you got to be really careful. That's really insanity, especially the hours that you mentioned, 8:30 in the morning. That's busy. In the afternoon, that's busy traffic too. That's when it's going to be, it's not going to be like in the picture. It's going to be like constant traffic coming through there. So keep that in mind before we make any further decision. That's what I suggest. Thank you.
Do we have any commissioners online with any comments or questions? I'm not seeing any hands. I'll continue to echo the same sentiment. With the parking challenges, I've been there in my life, where you then tend to park across the street because you don't have one that's immediately available just within the proximity of your site. Jaywalking, while it's legalized now, unfortunately, I fear for parents who are rushing in and out, and for the kids who need to be dropped off, picked up within a certain time frame. I echo the sentiments that this is a high traffic, and expanding additionally to 32 kids seems voluminous for this site. The other concern I also have, and I'll just say from a future perspective, is that vacant site that will begin construction soon. These are really small kids with a lot of the dust, the construction noise, the numerous chemicals and the noise that will come from that site. I fear for the safety of the kids because the play area is right adjoining that construction site. I have my concerns about the project as well. Again, I see Commissioner Bhatnagar. Hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think all the concerns raised by fellow commissioners quite serious and valid. Maybe we can give the applicant a chance to address, because they have a school already on half the property and it is operating. I have no data to say that is operating in any unsafe manner. And they're trying to make it expand by a factor of 2. So that will certainly increase some risk, but I want to understand what is the level of risk right now with the current operation. So that will be my question. Thanks.
Applicant, do you want to respond?
Currently, I'm having 14 students. With the 14 students plus the mommy and daddy, each family. I don't have any issue for almost 10 years. I've been running the business for 10 years, since 2014. And I've been running the business successfully. That's why I plan to extend the school. And then near the 95050, the zip code area, there are not many preschools. So there are many young couples coming in and then wants to send their kids to the preschool. So our school is very dedicating, I guess, to each family who really need a quality of the care. And then my husband is a construction guy, so he can work on we don't need a lot of fixing or installing, renovating a lot of things. He can he can use the time over the weekend, and he can finish, maybe I can have a day, 1 or 2 off, and then he can finish really quick. So outdoor area, he can fix over the weekend. And he already put the entrance gate. If he already measured what he has to do. So I think currently the parents drop off the kids at 9 o'clock. There are not much traffic as well. So it's been there has been no problem currently. So, and the parents are really happy to drop off the kids on that time. And many parents also work flexibly, so they can drop off between 9 to 9:30. So that is a time that less traffic happening. I think that's also, I already rented the 1075. I'm paying the rent, so it's really killing on my budget. So I really want to make it happen. I've been waiting for this chance to support my family. So please consider any chances. If I have to reduce the number of the kids, maybe I can readjust. So currently for 10 years, I haven't seen any problem with 14 family, families.
Commissioner Boozer?
I have one more question. I know you said you've been there for a few years at 1041, and then you want to take over 1075. You know, those being old houses there, I mean, what did you have done for the lead and asbestos? Because those properties are full of that. Those old houses, especially there in the El Camino, one being a beauty salon and so on, a lot of chemicals and so on. That's another thing too that kind of worries me. I do agree with the applicant that there is a need for the preschools, but
Commissioner,
maybe you should,
I just want to let you know that this is about the outdoor use
Okay,
of the facility
I'll-
to allow outdoor activity.
Right.
This isn't about the operation of the
Okay.
preschool. So I just wanted to.
Thank you so much for reminding me. Yeah, so that's one of the things I think we're going to have problem with parking and location to expand. So I think that's going to be one of the major problems that I see coming up with that, and that's one of my reasons that I don't agree with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Boozer. Thank you, applicant. Do you want to add anything? If not, we'll go to public comment.
Parking is the issue for outdoors. I think if I plan the I mean that's all I can say. So yeah, that's all I can say.
Okay, thank you.
And if it's possible to just,
Audrey, you need to wait.
so sorry, if it's possible to just circle back just real quick. As somebody stated, so the parking is so they do meet the parking for the code requirement. If we think that the parking should be more, I do think that maybe that is a code change that we can definitely make. But currently they do meet the code for the parking, and the preschool is an approved use for this zoning district. So it would just be that outdoor play area, which per state, they would meet the state requirement for the square footage per child. I think the main outdoor play area issue then would just be the dust from the proposed site. And I think that's something that we can definitely address down on a tad bit down the road. But I think that was the only issue with the outdoors play area itself.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Looking to attorney, do we need to open for public comment on this? We now open for public comment. Elizabeth, do we have any interest? Okay, seeing none. Okay. Seeing none, we close. Do I need to take a motion to close public comment? No, we're good. Okay, seeing no one for public comment, we'll move to the actual discussion and motion. While we all understand that the use permit currently under discussion is primarily focused on the outdoor playground area, 1,282 square feet, the concerns related to traffic and the construction impacts. So I'm hoping that the commission either propose or recommend some conditional ability to monitor both these impacts.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the outdoor play area with the mitigation of health and safety effort put in to prevent exposure to the construction noise, dust, and any possible harmful chemical flowing over from the other site during that construction phase.
Yep.
I look to staff to advise on how to monitor or to enforce that requirement.
Thank you. Is there
I second.
Second? Did I hear a second?
Yeah.
Commissioner
I
Huang?
second. Yeah.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. We'll do the vote.
Give her a chance.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Kidding. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a clarifying question on the motion. Do you mean construction of the outdoor play area itself, or do you mean potential construction of a future project adjacent to the
During the
site?
construction of the new project adjacent to the site, because that will be the one that will have a substantial impact on their health during the operation of that construction, or during the construction.
Okay, thank you.
Belabor it with fancy words.
Okay,
We have a motion and a second.
let me just get it up on the screen, just a moment.
Well, before we jump further, I might want to make a comment on my own motion, is that this may well be not something that they need to monitor at the preschool, or at the school. This may be an imposition on the construction site itself to guarantee that their construction does not impinge on their adjacent school. So if that's the case, we should make a note for that construction to impose maybe more than usual effort to keep the construction issues down, you know.
Unless, if the construction is starting from the safety standpoint of the kids playing outdoors, if you contain the hours or the ability of monitoring during that, will still rest on the daycare to monitor the children's activity outdoors when that construction is happening. So that would be an actual collateral.
Yeah, it's a cooperative effort.
I mean, we can make the note that we've stated it, even if it's a record, but, you know, to monitor for the health and safety of the kids, knowing that the adjacent site will have a construction project relatively soon.
If that makes sense. Okay.
Okay, thank you, staff. We still have a motion and a second. We're waiting for the roll call.
Commissioner Bhatnagar,
Yes.
Chair Kuru,
Yes?
Commissioner Wang,
Yes.
Commissioner Buza,
No,
Commissioner Salem.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Thank you. We now thank you to the applicant, wishing you luck. We now move to the next order of items, public presentation. Are there any members from the public who would like to address the commission on items not listed on the agenda? This is an open forum. There will not be any action taken on it. We can take it under advisement. But are there any members from the public?
Yes,
who
we
would
do
like?
have a speaker, and if I say the name wrong, I apologize. Timmy Oka.
Hello? Awesome. Hi, I'd like to address the board on a topic that came up last, I think, in October 2019, on the topic of short-term rentals. So I think this was originally intended to be revisited in spring of 2020, and we're hearing that it's going to come on the agenda soon. And myself and some of my neighbors from Hillmore Street are very much in favor of that being back on your agenda shortly. So we'd love to make that statement here, and also we'd love to know when that would next be up on the agenda and open for public comment. As you know, the city has no zoning regulations on short-term rentals. There were a few suggestions that were proposed back in that 2019 meeting that we're strongly in favor of. The first one is limiting the calendar days to 90, with the permanent host being an owner. And we'd like there to be serious consideration over the definition of permanent host, as to not allow workarounds for a renter in a room to be considered a permanent host, and then allowing the home to operate in essence as a boarding house. There's another one that we're strongly in favor for that was mentioned, which was limiting the rental occupancy, and we want to make sure that's per the public record. in our situation, we have a house next door essentially operating as a boarding home. It is listed as a 6-bedroom, 3-bath, I think, but per public record, it's about 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. There are a number of unpermitted additions on the home, and per the proposal last discussed in October 2019, which would allow 3 guests for the first room and additional 2 for every room over 1, that would allow 7 guests in the home. With all the unpermitted additions, you're able to then rent to 7 strangers, which is what happens frequently on our street, which is a major safety concern, adds a lot of traffic. We have no clue who's coming in and out of the buildings. I don't think is in the spirit of what Airbnb is intended to be. So that's also something we'd love for you guys to consider going forward as well. And then lastly, I didn't see this mentioned, but I think there should be some consideration to how space is used, in particular, what is considered rentable space. In our situation, this house in question rents out portions of what would be considered common space. So bisecting the living room or other common spaces together, which again increases the density that they're renting out and increases the traffic to our home. And so we would love that also to be a regulation, something that's monitored, that the rental of rooms is limited to actual bedrooms, because that would engender having groups that are of related parties renting together and not the ability to have 7, 8, 9 individuals who are unrelated going in and out at different times. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Duly noted. Staff, do you have a general understanding of when we would be bringing back the zoning code updates, including the short-term rentals, Airbnbs?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It will be coming to you early next year. There is a draft of the zoning code update on our website, should anyone wish to review or provide comments at this time as well.
So if members of public want to provide feedback on the zoning ordinance, is the link open?
There is a contact for the project manager that they can send an email to. Yes,
Okay.
we did previously have a ability to comment directly on the document, but I believe that is now closed.
Okay, so that is also your ability. There is a program manager or project manager assigned to the zoning code updates, and it's available online, the information, and you could send the same feedback to them. It'll come back to Planning Commission early next year. Thank you for being here.
Madam Chair, can I address, I have a question for you. No.
Sure.
I have a question for you, if you don't mind. Yes, please. I said, besides what you were saying, can you give me the location, the address of the property that you were telling me about that it turned into a 6-bedroom?
It's 611 Hillmar Street.
Okay, that's by the that's by the university.
Yes, it's the block of Hillmar in between Park and the Alameda.
Yeah. I used to have an office in Washington, 225 Washington. My dental office was there. Yeah, so I know the area.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Again, we cannot make any action on public presentations, but happy to receive comments and for a future agenda. We'll now move to, are there any other members? I'm sorry, before I move on. Okay, thank you. We now move to the actual public hearing for the day. We have one item that is for recommendation. We have the action on the Development Area Plan, or DAP 1, vesting tentative subdivision map for the related Santa Clara project at 5155 Stars and Stripes Drive. Staff, do you want to have a presentation?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Nimisha Agrawal, and I am the Planning Project Manager for related Santa Clara project. I am going to share my screen. Again, good evening, Madam Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. This request before you is for the approval of a vesting tentative subdivision map for Development Area Plan 1, also referred to as DAP 1 of the related Santa Clara development, as defined in the Master Community Plan MCP for the property located at 5155 Stars and Stripes Drive. This is a phased development related Santa Clara is a phased development of approximately 240 acres of city-owned land. A little bit of background. The project entitlements were approved in June of 2016. The entitlement approvals included environmental clearance, EIR, and MMRP, general plan amendments from parks and open space and regional commercial to urban center and entertainment district, rezoning from public, quasi-public parks or recreation and commercial park to plan development, master plan community, also known as PDMC. PDMC is a unique zoning for large phase development that has a built-in unique process. Another example would be Rivermark in Santa Clara. The approved MCP allows the phase development of a new mixed-use development of up to 9.16 million gross square feet of office buildings, retail and entertainment facilities, residential units, hotel rooms, parking facilities, open space and roads, landscaping, and other infrastructure and utilities. It also included the disposition and development agreement, DDA, as this is a city-owned land, and also a development agreement. Further, the development area plan or DAP1 proposal was approved in March of 2020, and the DAP2 proposal was approved in July of 2020. A comprehensive sign program for the city center area was approved in February of 2021. The architectural review for DAP1 was approved in last year in February, and the architectural review for DAP2 was approved in May of this year. So again, so talking about the site a little bit. So it is, like I said, it is a phased development of approximately 240 acres of city-owned land. The site area for DAP1 is about 14.3 acres, and it is composed of 3 parcels and portions of 2 other parcels. The general plan designation is Urban Center Entertainment District, and the zoning is Plan Development Master Community, PDMC. And the project site is highlighted in red here. The proposal includes subdividing the DAP1 into 7 parcels, including 3 parcels for office, hotel, and service apartments, as well as a vertical subdivision, which is a unique to this tentative map, is the vertical subdivision to create the underground garage that spans the majority of the phase 1 built out. The other 3 parcels are the Centennial Boulevard, the Avenue C, and then there is a remainder parcel in orange here. Here is a east-west longitudinal section of this just to show the vertical subdivision. So again, this is the office, this is Centennial Boulevard, this is the hotel, service apartments, Avenue C, and then we see the underground parcel here for the garage. Staff analyzed this proposal to see if it is consistent with the policies and programs of the consistent with the city's subdivision ordinance, and found that it is consistent with the policies and programs of the general plan in that it is transforming an underutilized site into a mix of retail, residential, and hotel use. The site is physically suitable for the type and density of the development in that given its location in an urbanized area and the presence of existing infrastructure and the proposed construction of additional infrastructure pursuant to the infrastructure master plan. The environmental impacts of the projects have been analyzed in the 2016 EIR and also the 2020 addendum for DAP1 and mitigated to the maximum extent feasible. Consequently, the proposed subdivision complies with all the applicable provisions of the city's subdivision ordinance. Further, staff found that the proposal follows the Subdivision Map Act and would implement the land use decisions that have already been made through the MCP approval in June of 2016 and DAP1 approval in March of 2020. The proposed subdivision will not result in any inconsistencies with the approved MCP for the property. As I mentioned earlier, the environmental review, the city certified an EIR for the project and adopted a mitigation monitoring or reporting program, MMRP, and adopted a statement of overriding considerations on June 28, 2016. In 2020, an addendum to the EIR was prepared for the DAP1 application that concluded that the potential environmental impacts associated with DAP1 have already been adequately analyzed in the project EIR. With that, staff recommends the Planning Commission adopt a resolution recommending the City Council to approve the vesting tentative subdivision map for DAP1 of the related Santa Clara development as defined in the MCP for the property located at 5155 Stars and Stripes Drive. This concludes the staff presentation. From the city, we have Assistant Community Development Director, Rena Brio. We have Ali Jackman, Principal Engineer from Public Works. We also have Anna Shimko and Eric Phillips from our outside counsel. And we have the applicants, Scott Borland from the Related, and Patrick Chan from BKF to help answer any questions that you may have today. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Commissioners, do we have any questions to staff? I'll pose the interesting, what I took away from the presentation is the vertical subdivision. That is, I think, unique. Is this one of our only first staff, Nimisha? Do we have a precedent in other locations with a vertical subdivision?
I am not aware of that. Ali, do you have an answer to that? Do you know of any examples of vertical subdivision prior to this?
Yes, good evening, Chair and Commissioners. This is Ali Jackman, Principal Engineer and Division Manager for Land and Property Development. We in Public Works here at the city have not received any other three-dimensional applicants. So this is our first, and we did bring on a third-party engineering survey consultant to assist with this process. So we did hire NV5 for that as well.
Thank you. That's why I was curious. With the vertical subdivision, is the general understanding that this can be, the garage could be sold off separately? Or is it still connected with the general related ownership, but just separate from the other 7 parcels or 6 parcels?
The garage is its own parcel. Nimisha, I'll take this initially if you want to add anything as well. The garage will be its own parcel, but it will be part of the related developments, and it will be used for the related development above it. So it's all hand in hand.
Got it. But the other 7 could technically be sold off. 6. The other 6 are legal parcels that technically could be sold.
Chair Chiriku, this is Rena Brio. I think Anna Shimko, our outside counsel, might be able to give a little bit of information on why the parcels are being subdivided in the manner they are.
Got it. Thank you. Go ahead, Anna.
Certainly, I'm happy to. Thank you, Anna Shimko, outside counsel to the city on this project since its inception. And the the only parcels on which development, non-streets, etc., will occur are the 3 airspace parcels, the office, the hotel, and the residential, and then the garage that runs below them and below the streets. As you know, this is city property, and the city will be ground leasing the land to Related, hopefully quite soon. And our intention is that the garage parcel and the office parcel above it will be ground leased as one. So there will be one ground lease that will be the office and the entirety of the garage. The garage really can't be split up between ground leases because it's one structure and really ought to be managed in a cohesive, unified way. And then parcel B and parcel C will be separate ground leases from the city to the entities that will develop those. The other streets, you mentioned 7, or the other parcels, you mentioned 7, are all street parcels, and the city will retain ownership of the red part, the Stars and Stripes and Avenue A over on the west side. The 2 pink parts that are Centennial and Avenue C, because they are above the garage, and so they will also be ground leased with the office parcel and the garage parcel. But then the city will take back an easement over those streets from Related. And our expectation is that we are getting things in order such that within a matter of months, that being potentially 2 months, we would be in a position, if the stars align, to be able to get these ground leases out to Related, and for the city thus to start obtaining rent from those parcels and for development to start. And just so you know, one of the preconditions to the ground lease is approval of the tentative map. And I'm happy to answer any further questions.
Very helpful. Thank you, Anna. Commissioners, do we have any questions, comments?
No questions, but I have one quick comment. That was very nice what you just said. If the stars align, no pun taken, I understand.
And the stripes, of course.
Yeah, we've been on a pun ride since the meeting started. Thank you, Anna. Again, any other commissioners online? I'm sorry if I'm missing any hands. I didn't see any. That was very helpful, and thank you both to our outside counsel as well as staff. I will just give color commentary. I really look forward to this project. It is, I think, it will be an iconic one for the city of Santa Clara. It is enabling a lot of much needed mixed use. It will allow for a more vibrant and communal feel. So I look forward to expediting whatever we can for this project. So I will be in favor of this project. Are there any other questions or comments, Commissioner Lance?
Yeah, I'm hoping that staff is capturing the process and the results for possible best practice review for other instances in the future of a 3-dimensional division, because I suspect this is not going to be the only one. It may be the first, but it's quite likely not going to be the only one as we get denser and go up. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Commissioner Huang's hands up. Commissioner?
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah. First time for me to see this kind of parcel. Yeah. I mean, for the office, hotel, and the service apartment, do they have a drawing or modeling the 3D? Yeah, just this. Yeah, this.
The
question.
architectural?
Yeah.
Are you asking about the architectural or the design?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll let staff respond of when that will
Thank you,
come.
Commissioner Wang. This is Nimisha again. Yes, we have, those were approved, planning entitlements were approved, and now it is being reviewed, and the building permits have been submitted and are under review. And the approval of the building permits is subject to approval of this, is dependent on approval of this tentative map.
Thank
So
you.
we have been reviewing the architectural drawings and structural drawings as part of the building review process.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry not to interrupt, but it might be helpful for you to know too that with the development area plan that did come before the Planning Commission, there was a broad level of architectural approval at that point in terms of the size of the buildings and their envelope. And then the details of the architectural review per the master community plan were approved by the community development director through an administrative level process.
The architectural review committee process.
It is similar to that, but because of the way that the master community plan was put together, it's at the community development director's discretion.
Got it. Thank you, Anna. Thank you. That was
Sure.
I see Commissioner Bhatnagar.
Yes, Chair, thank you. Quick question. If I understood the outside counsel here suggesting that the underground parking lot, that parcel will go hand in hand with the office complex parcel. I'm just wondering, are we setting up some cases where we might run into the problem where that particular parcel that now owns the parking area refuses to allow parking for the other two entities on that same parcel? Just a those the parcel, the ownership of the office building can change hands, and occupants may have different ideas about how many spaces they need and their own needs and so forth. Just wondering, is there a potential loop that we are building for ourselves there, not subdividing the parking area also into 3 parcels associated above them? So thank you. That's my question.
I'm happy to try and tackle that one. It's a very valid concern, of course. One thing that we certainly have going for us here is that it is all city property and the city controls the ground leases. So we will, if there are transfers to new ground lessees, the city is involved in that process. In addition, there will be conditions, covenants, and restrictions on the overall project. And I believe there is a condition of approval that there will be agreements between the different, the entities that control these parcels within phase 1 to ensure that there is adequate access, et cetera. I know when we were reviewing the tentative map at the staff level, there were lots of discussions with fire and public works, et cetera, to make sure that every parcel would have adequate access one way or another, like to the garage, through the garage, et cetera. And there will be transactional documents that are put into place that will ensure that those access ways and availability of the garage to the tenants remain in place.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Commissioner Bhatnagar. Thank you, Anna. Any other questions of staff? Feedback? Do we open this for public comment? We now open the item for public comment. Are there any members of public who'd like to address? I don't see anybody in the room, but virtually.
I don't see any hands raised. No public comments.
Awesome. We will move then. Do we have a motion? Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the DAP vesting tentative subdivision map for the related Santa Clara project at 5155 Stars and Stripes Drive. Thank you.
We move to recommend to City Council. Am I correct? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Wang.
Okay, we'll take the vote. Commissioner Bhatnagar,
Yes.
Chair Kuru,
Yes.
Commissioner Wang,
Yes.
Commissioner Buza,
Yes.
Commissioner Salame.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Thank you, Related Properties and all staff who are working on this. Look forward to the ongoing efforts to make this a lively place. Thank you. Moving to the next order, we have reports. Am I missing anything else? Reports of commission, board liaison, and committee
Madam Chair,
members. Yes,
we have a study session first from SVP.
Session.
Don't kill our study
I'm so sorry.
It's only one line. It kind of gets lost on the agenda.
Oh, and it's the big one. Yeah. Thank you, staff. We now move to the study session, the most important one for the evening as well. Silicon Valley Power. Looking forward to that. Staff?
So, Elizabeth, do I need to share my screen or do you have the PowerPoint?
We will have you share your screen. Thank you.
Okay.
I would expect Silicon Valley Power to have the power.
So I'm Kevin Kolnuski. I'm the chief, the electric utility chief operating officer. And what I do is I have a handful of slides here to go over. And if it's okay with you, I'll go through the slides and then answer any questions that you guys may have. Is that okay?
Sure. Sounds great.
Okay, we'll get started. So Santa Clara has been experiencing a fairly significant load growth over the last 12 to 18 months. This past year, we've been seeing about a 10%, 8 to 10% increase over previous months. So overall this year, it's been about a 10% increase. And the load growth, we speculated for a while that it was going to be happening. Over the last, I'd say 18 months, it has been happening. We set a new peak on September 6th of 702 megawatts for the utility. Prior to that was set on June 21st of about 650 megawatts. That was June 21st of this year. And prior to the load that we're seeing this year, we've been hovering around 600 megawatts for about the past 3 years. So the load growth is coming, and it's causing some challenges for us. We have broken down the activities that need to take place into two groups. And one is SVP related, and there's transmission related projects. The transmission related projects are outside of SVP. They're how we get the power into the city. We have right now 5 locations where we take transmission at either 230 or 115 kV from the Cal ISO controlled PG&E grid. So what we've been working, there's a number of projects that we've completed over the last couple of years. You know, we have worked on the South Loop project, which increased load capability. We split up a loop into the southern area of the state. We went to council and approved growth plans, upgraded load development fees, and we put contracts in place for master service agreements and for program managers to develop or help us manage these projects. We've gone to council. Council has approved about $300 million worth of capital projects. Those are within the city of Santa Clara to improve our load capability. And the couple major projects are revamping our receiving stations at KRS, our Kiefer receiving station, which is near our power plant off of Lafayette and Central. And our Scott receiving station, which is in that area off of Space Park and our northern receiving station, which is up near Levi Stadium. And we're also looking to install an additional transmission line from the northern receiving station to the Kuiper receiving station. One other project that we're working on is a battery storage project. This will be located near the Kuiper receiving station. This is a 50 megawatt, 200 megawatt hour facility that we're going to be doing a power purchase agreement with a third-party developer. We're providing the land, and they're going to be building the battery storage facility in that area. Now, the new transmission projects that are coming in, we had to go through the California Independent System Operator, the CAISO, and this is a multi-year project. We have to submit to them every year a 10-year projection. So we look at what's happening within the city, and we project for the next 10 years, and we update that every year. The data goes to the California Energy Commission. They vet the data, they'll ask us questions, they present the data to the CAISO, then it goes, the CAISO evaluates it, then it's voted on during the CAISO commissioner meeting. That's typically in March of each year. This past year, the CAISO board approved $1 billion worth of projects to improve the capability to bring power into the South Bay area. The two projects were, one is a high voltage DC line that is connecting from PG&E's Newark substation to our northern receiving substation. And the other is another high voltage DC line going from the Metcalf station, which is down closer to Morgan Hill, up to San Jose B, which is somewhat south of the airport. So we have these two high voltage DC lines coming into our area, which will support. The one primarily supports us, the project number one. The second project supports the growth that's taking place in the San Jose area. Our priority is project number one, the one that goes from Newark to NRS. These projects are scheduled to be completed in 27, 28. We think that date is probably going to slip. It could slip by a year. And with the CAISO does the project is basically out to bid right now. I think bids are either just due or are coming due. Then the California Public Utility Commission will evaluate the bids and select the bidder. These projects will not be owned by PG&E. They are going to be done by an independent developer, and they will own the transmission line. They will receive transmission access charge from the CAISO to operate the lines to meet the load growth for SVP. So with this happening, we talked about where our load has been. You know, like this year, we hit 702 megawatts. At about 750 megawatts, we have constraints within the city where there may be conditions that we'd have to curtail load if it goes above that. And that would typically happen during these high temperature days where there's other issues, say in the CAISO area or in the PG&E area, that would restrict things. We have to follow the reliability standards that look at N-1 conditions. So you always got to plan, if this happens, what's your contingency? But with these projects coming in, our load serving capability will exceed about 1,100 megawatts. So there's a handful of local projects that we have been doing. The Sarah substation, which went online earlier this year, was a substation that was originally built about 50 years ago. We upgraded it. This was a single transformer with limited feeds leaving the substation. We basically doubled the transformer capability. We added another transformer. We replaced the transformer, increased the size. So basically, we took a smaller transformer and added two larger transformers, removed the smaller, and increased the number of feeds that can go out into the community. This area of the Sarah substation is near the Jenny Strand Park, Agilent area off Stevens Creek Boulevard. And what this project does, it improved our ability to serve that area and puts more feeds into the area for reliability. This area where there's a lot of residential are fed by the two main substations. It's Sarah and Homestead. And out of this, this definitely helps us improve our ability to serve load and the potential growth that we anticipate with electrification that's coming up. One of the things that we have been doing as we change pole mounted transformers, we do go to in the next size up, that again is to help support electrification that is coming into the area. The next substation that's going to be upgraded in this area is the Homestead substation. We're currently in the design phase of this. This is currently a 2-bank transformer arrangement, and we'll be doing a demo of that and going to a 3-bank transformer with, again, additional feeders going out into the community, which will improve the ability to support electrification and also improve reliability. One thing that SVP has done and has done very successfully is, even though you say you live in this area, your primary feed is from the Sarah substation, we can reroute power through switching and transfer it to the Homestead substation. As the Sarah substation was being redesigned or rebuilt, that substation was shut down for about, I think it was 12 to 16 months. So all the load was fed from the Homestead area. So we have the capability of moving loads around. And both of these projects help us do that. It improves reliability and gives us the ability to support electrification as it comes in. In a couple of these areas where we were doing modifications, we're going through doing some pole change outs. We'll also increase the conductor size that, again, helps support electrification projects that may be coming. As we go into the future, the going beyond 1,100 megawatts is going to be a challenge. We have started talking with council, I think, on one of the past quarterly reports that Manuel Pineda has presented, talked about that we're going to be coming back to them. We're in the process of doing a 20-year look. So we do for the CAISO, we do a 10-year look every year, but that's a rolling 10 years. We're looking to do a look out 20 years, what's happening and what do we have to do. We currently have requests from developers, and I know you guys on the commission see this too. Based on all the requests we have, we could easily hit 2,000 megawatts or greater. And that would be almost tripling the size of our utility, which is a significant lift to do that. And to go beyond that, we need to have a good discussion of what has to take place. One of the items is we can't do it alone because, again, the CAISO process, we have to be able to get the power into the city. We could do all the modifications in the city that we can wheel the power around, but if we can't get the power in from the PG&E CAISO controlled grid, we can't support the load. So there are constraints. We don't know exactly what those are. They have to be studied. We're going to be, as we develop the 20-year plan, we're anticipating to get that to council, I think, probably in the first 6 months of next year. We'll probably asking them for some direction on what we need to do and how we move forward. And one of the challenges that we have with all this load growth, we have a commitment, and I have a slide coming up that talks about our flight path to get to carbon neutrality through the integrated resource plan and so forth. And so as we go forward with new power purchase agreements, we only look at sources that are carbon neutral. This is a renewable portfolio standard that is managed by the state of California, in our case, the California Energy Commission, which has a path for us to get to 60% carbon free by 2030. Now, it's like we have the climate action plan that was voted on by council, I think, in the last month or so, which has us going to the cap target is going 100% carbon neutral by 2035. So we're continuing to follow this. Like I said, all the power purchase agreements we get involved with are looking to have resources that have carbon neutrality and not a carbon footprint. One item that has come up is I know there's some concern from the commission about SB9 and electrification. One thing I want to let you folks know is the residential load represents about 6 to 7% of our total load. So it's a relatively small portion. So even if our residential load doubled, it's less than adding one data center to Santa Clara. So everything we're doing with bringing the power into the city is to support the industrial commercial load caused by predominantly the data centers. The residential load is not that, we're not that concerned about that because it's small compared to what we're trying to do from the projects that have been approved. In terms of the accessory dwelling units, the ADUs, we currently have in our rules and regulations that if there is an ADU, that if you were to come to us to permit an ADU, we require you to put a separate meter in for that. So there's separation between the existing residents and the new residents, because most of those are thought to be going to be rented and so forth. And there's views that you want to have your own, have control of what your power usage is. And also that since these are new buildings, the efficiency, they're very efficient and usage is fairly low. And, in terms of other electrification, as the opportunity presents us when we're in neighborhoods doing upgrades, we try to look at upgrading circuitry and transformers to accommodate the electrification that's being anticipated. One thing that we've seen this year is so far we've had 190 new solar applications. So far out of those, 53 have been installed. This is yielding over 1,000 permitted cities solar systems within the city. One thing that has come up is with the new data centers is their desire to be carbon neutral. I think it was probably about 12 to 18 months ago, we came up with a new program, the Large Commercial Renewable Energy Program, which is where it's directed towards like the data centers. A lot of the folks that are using power in the data centers, the key players, the Intel, Microsoft, and so forth, they're looking to change their carbon footprint. So a lot of them are starting to procure power purchase agreements outside of like Santa Clara. They want to wheel the power in. So this is a mechanism for us to do this, is to enable that. And I believe that the last several data centers that have been permitted, council is requiring them to be carbon neutral. And since the way the permitting process goes, they go through a small power plant exemption for their backup generators at the Energy Commission. And those are some of the conditions that have been being placed in at the Energy Commission. Then our council accepts that, or they're accepted in the city. I'm not exactly positive on the way that's done, but those provisions have been added into the last several that have been approved. So I just want to kind of raise that with you guys. Examples of electrification for residential programs. There's a lot of stuff that we have been doing. There's a lot of programs on our website to help people to start the transition to electrification if they desire. And this is just kind of an outline of what we're doing for the residential. We have similar programs for the business use and so forth. And the next up we're going to talk a little bit about is transportation electrification. The EV transition is important to us. We're working on both public and city charging infrastructure and a transition to the city's fleet, not just the SVP fleet. So by the end of this year, was the phase 2. There are 3 phases on the previous slide. This is by the end of this year, phase 2 will be complete, which are 49 additional charging points located at 8 locations. And for fiscal year 2022, we have placed an order for 46 all electric vehicles, and there's some electric fork trucks that we're purchasing. And on the next slide kind of outlines the class of vehicles we're getting. I do want to note that due to all the supply chain issues with the F-150 Lightnings, we have not received any of those yet. But we have a number, predominantly the Bolts, Konas are the vehicles of choice that we have been procuring. And we're getting the pickup trucks, and we're also looking at vehicles, utility vehicles at that level of electrification, what's available yet. And we haven't found ones that work to what we're looking for yet, but I know we will before long. And I think that's all I have. So if you guys have any questions, I'm more than happy to do my best to answer. And if I can't answer them, I will take the question and work to get you an answer.
Thank you. We have quite a few commissioners interested. This is a very robust topic. Commissioner Lance?
You want me to go first? Are you sure?
Okay.
I'll wait.
Okay, Commissioner Bozza.
Thank you for your presentation. I got a couple of questions for you that you just brought in mind. One of them that is, you said it's the 6 to, 20% max of the utility used by the residential units. Did you see a high increase? Because the new trend now that we have is that a lot of people are working from home and probably have home offices and so on. Have you seen a much more higher demand since, say, 2019, 2022, today to 2022 on that? Did you see a big change?
We have not from the residential. We've seen the demand from the data centers. That's been driving our growth. That's where our growth is coming from, is from the data centers.
From data centers. And one of the things that the data centers, so we're kind of start to run a little bit behind. One of your things that you were mentioning is the data centers are taking a lot of the power. So am I correct to assume that you are, I hate to assume things, but to say that maybe we could slow down a little bit in the data centers so you guys catch up to the power need?
We've been explaining to the data centers the challenge that we're having, and as we have presentations with them, we go through a system impact study and explain to them at what point we could connect them, and that to go beyond much more it's dependent on the CAISO and how they can get the power to us. So we are explaining that to them, and I don't believe their entitlements will be granted until we're capable of getting that to them.
Yeah. Well, thank you. The Santa Clara Valley Power, just make a quick comment. Everybody in Santa Clara has been spoiled for many, 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 many years. No shortages. And the last couple of years or so, we're starting to see a little bit of rolling blackouts in certain parts of Santa Clara. I hope we can take care of this with the new substations and new programs you're having coming up. Do you think you'll be able to solve that?
In terms of rolling blackouts, what are you referring to? We have outages at times.
Yeah, outages. Okay, I just call it power off. That's what I call it.
Yeah, because we if we have to do like a PSPS event, which we have not had to do, we concentrate on the facilities with backup generators, and residential is the last to take up. But we have issues with storms, trees in contact with wires. We have a very robust tree trimming program to prevent that from happening. But stuff still does happen, and we're working on improving the maintenance of our infrastructure.
Yeah, and you expect to have the completion of all the transformers by what, 2027, changing a lot of the old transformers from the city?
For the substations are 2027. The transformers, we're still working on that. I don't have an exact date when that will take place right now.
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Commissioner Bhatnagar?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Two questions. One is simply regarding your statement earlier in your presentation that you're actually planning to lay 2 lines from Newark to Kiefer that are going to be high voltage DC transmission lines. Was wondering what the motivations are, because normally the high voltage lines are all AC transmission. Just thought you might have a word or two there.
Yeah, and that is a CAISO project to install the DC line, and I think their motivation is you're only running 2 wires versus 3 wires. I think they believe it may have to be undergrounded, so you're only undergrounding. Your duct banks are smaller in the underground, and the other challenge it does, it gives more VAR support with their converters than an AC line would do. So there's some benefits from doing it that way. But I believe that is some of the motivations of why they selected. Again, those projects are sponsored by the CAISO. They are paid for by the CAISO. We all pay for them through the transmission access charge. If I say all, I mean all of us, everyone in California, because they take it and they spread it across. They say it's a community benefit for everyone, and they'll spread it to all their customers, which is beneficial to us, because if if we had to put $500 million in for one, our rates would probably have to go up.
Yeah, okay, understood. It'll be an interesting outcome some years later to understand how the DC transmission worked up against the AC transmission. That's great to see, though. My second question is much simpler. For my edification, would you please clarify the Silicon Valley Power serves just the city of Santa Clara, or there are adjacent cities?
Nope, just the 19
Just
square
the city of-
miles of Santa Clara. We're the electric department of the city of Santa Clara. We're all Santa Clara employees.
Okay, thank you very much. Good luck trying to ward off all these demands on these memory centers or data centers. If you give them a 20% discount on their operational cost of electricity, I can't imagine that they're not trying to jump the fence and get into Santa Clara any way they can. But thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Huang.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for the presentation. My first question is, for the data center, we know they have the diesel backup generator. My question is it possible we can provide electrical redundancy to get rid of those diesel generators?
So are you saying could we provide another feed to them?
Yeah, so the redundant.
So the way the Santa Clara system is designed, we typically provide 2 feeds to a data center. So we do what's called a loop system. So the data center is not on a radio, which would be at the end of a line. So we're in a loop. So if depending on where the loop fails, if there's a failure, if there's an outage, that location may have an outage, but it would get picked up by the other side of the loop. So we've done a lot of explaining that to the California Energy Commission, because our reliability is very high. I've had to testify with the anticipated outages for the data centers, and we have had some outages on a loop where a problem occurred and the loop broke, not just in one location. So you got an island stranded. That's where we would get an outage. It's very infrequent. It can happen. But to put another line in is not completely feasible. So typically these data centers, they run more in testing their units than they do for any emergency that we have.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
hopefully that helped.
Yeah, I mean, those diesel generators really, okay. Yeah, thank you so much. Another question is for solar. You mentioned that we have 190 applications. Do we have any program to encourage solar installation in Santa Clara?
I know we have programs that encourage solar installation. I'm not sure what our current programs are. I'd have to find out and get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Are you looking for just solar or solar and storage?
Probably solar and storage.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, just personally, I try to install solar, but Sunrun, they don't do business in Santa Clara.
Well, and part of that is our rates are so low, so they have a hard time justifying being competitive. And we've heard that from other customers. So a lot of customers that do it, they're not doing it for the cost, they're doing it because it's something they strongly believe in. We had discussions, you talk about the auxiliary dwelling units. We had a customer that he had built an ADU, we built it to spec, and he had a battery storage system on his house. He wanted to put one on his ADU, but he wanted it all under 1 meter. So it created some challenges, but that was more of I would say he was very passionate about his solar storage system.
Okay. Yeah. Third question is, you mentioned the underground power line, but at least at the residential, it's still some pole, right? The transmission line is on the pole.
There would be, yes, because you got to come down, you got to go down a pole into the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. So any plan for the city to remove those poles, or
Not at this point. That'd have to be a council directed action, which would be, to underground is very expensive.
okay? So, but for the new projects, it's mainly underground. Is that correct?
It depends. Some areas it's an undergrounding requirement, and then we do underground. But if it's not, there'd have to be a strong argument to do the undergrounding.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Lance.
Okay, so my comments and questions aren't intended to be adversarial. They may come across a little bit that way. Could you put up the slide with the load measurements over the last few years for this first one, I think?
This one?
Yeah, that's a great one. Among my degrees is one in applied math, and that curve is really not a line. That is a parabola, and it's accelerating upwards as you get closer to today. I don't think the expectation is that we're going to continue to see a gradual increase in demand, mostly because some of the other criteria going on in California right now, or actually across the nation and world, in a decade or so, we're not going to see internal combustion engines being sold new. We're going to see EVs. The number of EVs coming in to our city and our neighborhoods, even through empirical evidence, I see it in my cul-de-sac. 10 years ago, I was the only one with an EV, and now every single house in the neighborhood has one, and we're going up to the third car. So our house alone will have 3. All of these cars need to be charged. I don't drive halfway across the city to charge them. Let's leave that aside. I think that the growth is going to be substantial in that area. The second criteria that we have to keep in mind is that there's a huge push to dismiss natural gas as our primary energy source in the house for forced air heating, ovens, gas ranges. If we switch away from natural gas completely by mandate, then through every remodel or rebuild of something in the city, we're going to see all of that load previously distributed to natural gas brought in as a load on electricity. There are all of these various pieces and parts coming together kind of like a perfect storm that will obviously affect our load. Similar to the other mention on solar. I went to Costco and they tried to talk me into solar, and I said, I live in Santa Clara, and they said, okay, never mind. And that was kind of the whole conversation, because the best solar can do is about 16 cents a kilowatt hour, and we're down at 12. Yay us, but we don't have solar as a fallback. All of these things are combining, and I think we're not being aggressive enough on planning for our load increasing in the next 10 to 15 years. I'd like to be here to see it, but I don't know, hopefully at least. But do you have backup plans to your view of how the growth will happen such that you can adapt to this curve continuing to increase? That's the first question. And you can jump in if you want, but that's the main question, is how are we going to cope with the actual versus the predicted when we discover pretty soon now that the actual is considerably more than we're budgeting for?
Yeah, so one thing in terms of if there's a conversion from natural gas heat to heat pumps and so forth, we are a summer peaking utility. That peak will occur in the winter, so we have a lot of margin throughout the utility to cover that one way or the other, because our load is a lot lower in the winter than in the summer. So I'm not too worried about that. We have looked at electrification. We have a number of people. I have a plug-in Prius. Well, a number of us have electric cars. We have done the analysis of looking at what that load means and what it means to, the growth and so forth, even if there's a high level of adoption. And we have a program manager that deals with EVs. We're continuing to look at that. We don't see that because it's different than a continuous load. It's not, it can be managed differently than where your peak is. And where our concern, where our challenge is, and where we have challenges with the Cal ISO is when we're hitting that peak, same as with California. Our peak starts right now at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and it runs to about 6 o'clock, where the Cal ISO peak starts at 4 o'clock and runs to 9 o'clock. So we're a little off of that because our load, we're still, because of we don't have as much solar penetration, our peak is still a typical utility peak. So we like I said, we have looked at if there's a high adoption of electric EVs, we don't see it as, with our overall grid, so we don't see that as a huge issue for us. That's how we looked at it, because we have more margin in our system than probably other utilities do, the way we have it designed. Like I said, we have a lot of redundancy built in, and it's just the example we talked about with Sarah and Homestead. We can blend and move things around to support the load that we see growing in various areas. So that's best I can answer that. That's best how I can answer that question.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the thing that makes me concerned the most, is that I'm working from obviously personal evidence and study within the neighborhood, but I've seen my electrical usage rising dramatically over the last few years, and I anticipate it continuing to rise even more so. I'm already I have two 200 amp switch boxes and I can't add anything. That's really scary, because when the house was built, it was built with a single 200 amp switch box, and that was all there was to it. So now, as we move forward with new developments and new entire regions being built out, they're going to need a much higher capacity to be able to grow into the eventual load that we're going to put on them. But even things like measuring the kilowatt hours, I have two 100 kilowatt hour batteries in the cars. That's way and above anything you would normally imagine having parked in your garage, is that much load being needed for just personal transportation. And then you start to multiply it out across all the residents that are living in Santa Clara. It gets to be a concern, and really that curve is a parabola. It's not a line. So if we're not thinking in terms of doubling and tripling in the next 20 years capacity, we may fall short and have all of the concerns and crises that Commissioner Buzza and others have pointed out. Is we're going to drop off the being able to provide sufficient power, even though, yes, as on average, the cars are completely off the load peak, because we charge overnight. I think everybody I know charges overnight or free at work. If they are employed, they go to work, they plug in, and they get their charge during the day. As the businesses within Santa Clara continue to provide this capability, more and more people are going to start tapping that there. I still agree also with you that the data centers are our biggest unknown. As we continue to approve more and more data centers, they're going to flood in. This is a nirvana for power. Our city is the holy grail. You come to Santa Clara if you have big data. Well, guess what the tech trends are right now? Big data. Big data means big servers. Big servers means data centers. It's all twined together into a fabric of heavy load. So that's my personal. Okay, here's the other side of the problem. I'm retired, so I have plenty of time to dig into this stuff. And I start to find things that scares me a little bit. But that is definitely a big concern, that if your comment was that you don't think that residential is the big load, I think residential is a scary hidden place that's going to grow dramatically in the next 15 years.
It could grow. We think it's going to be more moderate than you probably do from a peak standpoint. And I think the peak electric load may be 35 to 40 megawatts. And you look at the data centers, they're going to be, if we get to that 1100, they're going to be like 800 megawatts. So even if you double the residential load, we have enough margin that we can cover it. I feel pretty confident.
Yeah. Well, you also don't want to redline our system the entire time as we increase load. You want to have capacity. So.
Yep, and that's what we're working to do. And that's we need to do that with the Cal ISO. And they came through this past year with the approval of the 2 high voltage DC lines. We'll see what they do over the next couple of years. It's like from once we present data, we hear it about 18 months later. That there's a long gap between it. They got to study it, and it's a very intricate system, all very integrated system too, because we're not an island.
Right. So my last comment, and then I'll pass it over, is that this is something I really don't want to be able to say, I told you so. I don't want to tell you so. I want to raise some flags and sit back and watch all of this happily and smoothly increase in capacity and the city be the endless source of power that it has been. I think we're the best in the valley. I think it really proves that solar needs more than just raw numbers to help. We need some kind of incentive to help encourage people to bring it in. It will help us in the future. So if there's anything that we can do from Silicon Valley Power or from the city to incentivize people to bring solar in, it's just a long-term win for everybody.
And that does not mean increasing our rates here, just FYI.
No.
Please do not send that message.
Don't raise it to 16 cents a kilowatt hour just so people get solar.
We have,
No, don't increase it.
we have other commissioners, Commissioner Boozer, and then we'll go down.
Hi, a real quick question here, just to change from electricity to, what are we doing to protect, our power plant over here in Lafayette? What's the security that you have in place for that? Because I never seen anything with security, and I know San Jose had problems and some nut was shooting up their facilities. What are we doing to protect our facilities? Because right there, I always thought that was a crazy place to build our power plant next to the airport. When the plane crashes, what are you going to do? Knock out the whole place, So I'm just wondering, what are you doing for security for our power plant?
We have a security system. We have gone through ever since the Metcalf. We have evaluated. We do have a capital project to look at the security systems of not only the power plant but our substations, and we're evaluating that right now. So we had to do after the Metcalf, we had to present a paper to the California Public Utilities Commissions. Even though they don't monitor us, we had to respond. And we had to come up with approaches to it. We're okay now. We are continuing to look at what do we have to do, and as we go through some of these rebuild of the KRS and SRS. That is the item that we're looking at, is taking what we do for those for security and move it over to the power plant. The good thing about DVR, it is a manned site. And we do get very good support from our sister agency, the police, and so we do work very closely with them. We do drills with them and fire and so forth. But we do have an alarm system, intrusion alarms and stuff like that. But we're always looking into what do we need to do to make it best of class.
Thank you. I see Rena, and then we'll go to Commissioner Wang. Rena?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add that SVP works incredibly closely with planning throughout the planning process on all of our projects. And they sit on our PCC, which is our Project Clearance Committee. And for those of you who've maybe only been on the commission of Santa Clara, other cities don't have this, I would say, benefit of having a utility provider sit during an entitlement review to make sure that power can be delivered, that a building not only will get built, but it will be supplied power in a timely fashion. So there's coordination that's going on throughout the process. And of course, the sensitivity around data centers, because they are such a heavy user of power. We're very coordinated with SVP and with the applicants as well. They are talking to SVP as they're coming in and applying, so that they have real-time information as to whether or not, if they get entitlements, will they actually be able to be provided power in a timely manner? And we're working with SVP to make sure that a project doesn't get too far through the process without a power supply. So I just wanted to provide that information for the commission about the amount of coordination that we're really fortunate to have SVP, and also that we are working so closely with them throughout the entire entitlement and really building permit process as well.
Thank you, Rena. Commissioner Huang.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Actually, probably two more questions. Yeah, we know the data center in Santa Clara is spread out right now. My question to planning and also to SVP is it better we, let's say, have a data center park, put data center together? Is that the better way, or let the data center, spread out at the city, within the city?
SVP is indifferent.
Okay.
Sorry, can you repeat again?
We're indifferent to where they're located. Now, some areas may be more expensive to serve, but we really don't have an opinion if they're apart, if it's a park where they're all together. They're all still in a fairly tight area within the city.
Okay. Yeah, the reason I ask is this planning, it's about the future, right? If we think we put the data center together is better way, maybe for the planning probably we try our best to do that way. Since I really don't know, right? It's if we put a data center together, actually I'm thinking, is it easier to have the electrical redundancy? Yeah, my second question is for the battery backup, right? For residential, the power wall, let's say from Tesla, the power wall, if I have a power wall, I can use the battery to support my family when the power outage happen, right? But for data centers, since they draw so much power, is a battery backup possible to? I try to get rid of those diesel generators. Just some idea, right? Is it possible? Just my feeling is, if you have asked the data centers to have some batteries, the batteries can store energy. Probably they can average the peak and the valley, right? So the battery can be used every day, anytime. But the diesel generator is just only when you have the power outage, then you use it. And here we barely have that. So to me, I think the diesel generator is just a waste. But if we have a battery as a backup, we can use the battery capacity every day, right? So yeah, that's just some question. Yeah, thank you.
Not exactly sure if you want me to answer that. I'm not sure if I can.
Yeah.
The data, I'm not involved in the design of a data center. What they look at, I know they look at reliability very closely. They're very risk adverse, and I think the upside to the diesel is the diesel could run, in theory, say there's a major event where we don't have power for hours, or say a day. A battery will typically only last 4 hours. So then you're back to you got to have a battery for the initial, then you go to the diesel. So I know that's some of the risk adverse nature that the data centers get into with that. So I don't know how they design and how they look at it. All I know is the discussions we've had with them, they're a risk-averse group.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'll go with my comments unless anybody else is out there. Thank you again, Mr. Kalinowski. It's truly a pleasure to have you come here and present this invaluable session to us. I just joked this morning that I am married to City of Santa Clara because of Silicon Valley Power. So I would not think of considering any other city better than ours for our power. With that, whenever it comes to data centers, it hits a raw nerve in me. I just looked up, my first question, which I noted, was how much is our percentage consumption from data centers? And I truly also appreciate your website. You have a very comprehensive, very user-friendly website. I was just perusing it right now. And I quickly noted, to the point that Commissioner Lance was making, and to your earlier stats, residential is 6%. Commercial is 2.2%. Industrial is 91.4%. And I'm assuming 90% of that is data centers.
It's a high number.
And that itself tells me, a municipal is 0.4, and I'm assuming that's all the government infrastructure or services, and unmetered is minuscule. But it tells me a very revealing, and it's always been, as I said, it strikes a raw nerve. I feel we are just being, looted, loss of words, because we have this incredibly robust, I would say, first, very robust, very reliable, and very cheap source of power in our city. The slide that you have in your background is priceless. I'm truly grateful for our pioneers in the city of Santa Clara who envisioned in 1896 that we would need our own power. If you could share that slide through staff to me, that would be really nice. But I wanted to acknowledge that we really are concerned about power. I can't say that in any other way. We are progressing into a world of a lot of, electric, with no other backup option. When I think of all the climate changes, the heat loads that happened in just the 4 days that we had, which is when I think the rolling heat blackouts happened, again, with all the PG&E that shut down hospitals, that in emergency departments, I know all the fallout that happens when we don't have power. We just take it so much for granted here. But I am also concerned, like Commissioner Lands and others, are we appropriately strategizing for backup, resiliency, and funding from the city to enable future growth? Related was a massive project coming soon. We have many specific plans, Keely, projects. There's so many, and data centers continue. My own sector continues to harvest the data center in Santa Clara. So we have 54 data centers. I hope City Council takes heed of it, as do you, in considering, should we consider a cap? So that was my leading question to all. At what point in time, or in your years, or capacity, if that's easier, do you feel we have maxed and we would need a whole different redundancy plan? What is your delta? What do you say, in 10 years we have the potential to meet 50% additional growth or surge in demand?
I feel very comfortable the plan that we're on to get to the 1,100 megawatts. That is, we have the commitment from the Cal ISO to do that. They approve projects to do that. To go beyond that, we need more from them, and that's going to be a challenge. And I think the next question is going to come back to council. What do you want this to look like? Because to go beyond that, we're doubling right now, but they have to double again. That's a huge undertaking that is unprecedented to do for electric utility in today's market. Now, other communities like ourselves are, I will say, enjoying this or experiencing it because, I know there's some data centers are very popular in Virginia. They're similar to us. They're a municipality, low rates, they get attractive. So yeah, I think as we do the study for the 20-year plan, I think that that question will get answered more clearly. What do we have to do in the next step to get there? Because it may not be, there may be physical limitations to making that happen.
Thank you. And because you mentioned the 11,000 megawatts, what is it today? What is our consumption today?
Our peak that we hit on September 6th was 704. And this will go up to 1,100, not 11,000, 1,100 megawatts.
Oh, 1,100. Oh.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you said that's a 20-year plan? So you expect
That's a 10-year plan.
10-year.
Yeah, that's in about 10 years from now, we would be in that 1,100 range. There may be a little more, a little less, but it'll be in that range.
So technically, we are limited from 704 to 1,100 in the 10 years. That's not much of a gap. We have about 300 to 400.
Yeah, and the limitation is it's from the Cal ISO. It's out exterior to Santa Clara. And that's we're in the process of putting our next estimates in. We're showing our load up 300 megawatts. I'm going to be very curious over the next 18 months to see how they respond to that, and that will give us some clarity of what they may say. Hey, this is getting tough for us to do in this area, or they may say, these high voltage lines we put in, they had more capability, no problem. And we don't know that yet. We don't know that answer. Interesting.
And on the undergrounding, why would we not mandate new construction to be underground?
That's a council decision. Yeah. And
Isn't that a safety issue with all the winds, high winds, and?
There's arguments both ways that come up. I know. I think you probably read articles from what took place in Florida with the hurricanes. They did very robust, and I'm not sure how much of it was underground or just very robust above ground, but I think they actually survived very well from the hurricanes. There's pluses and minuses to having things underground. It's more expensive, and we'd have to get council direction to make that happen.
I'll go to Commissioner Bozef for a question.
Real quick question, just to mention what you were about underground. You meaning new projects?
New projects.
Yeah, the new projects. I believe they're underground. Like you
They're
take.
not mandated. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, but
it depends. In certain
parts of the city residential, like you had Santamas, which was one of the first ones, and then
Yes.
Laurel Park East and so on, and River Mark, they're all underground. But the new construction. Real quick here, and I'll just promise not to say another word. When it comes, one of the things that our chairperson was concerned with about raising rates. When it comes the time, which there will be the time sooner than we hope, that you will start raising rates. Why can you have like different tiers? Like the first time you need to raise rates, go to the data centers, and then down the line to say manufacturing, and then the residential being the last. Is there a certain tier that you're willing to go ahead and put the data centers first to make up the difference in any deficit that may come along?
And I may not be articulating this correctly, but I believe there's a proposition that passed years ago. I think it was Prop 26. It's either 26 or 22 that mandates how we treat customers, and we got to treat customers equally. So we can't give one customer a smaller rate increase than another customer. And we're always very concerned about that. And I have some familiarity, but not familiar enough to be able to talk on that.
And one last thought is, with all of the increasing, not just rates, the demand and the resiliency, we have so many office complexes and data centers, I won't even go there, that continue to have electricity on when not in use. How are we requiring the sustainability of the power consumption in the building? I know you don't have much of a say, but in the design, can they effectively say, when not in use, shut it down, or limit your HVAC consumption if there's nobody in the building? I mean, especially in the remote hybrid world today. why do we continue to enable wastage of electricity across the city?
I don't have an answer for that.
Okay, that was a self-proclamation question, but I feel like we ought to be really thinking sustainability, and with all of the climate changes that are happening with the Floridas, what happens if we have an incident? What is our backup? Like we truly should be thinking, God forbid anything adversarial. We had a 5.1 earthquake just 2 days ago, I think yesterday? Yesterday. Most of us felt it. It was fairly close to home. So my thoughts and concerns would make sure that we have a true backup, because without electricity, there's no life. There isn't any life. Thank you again. Any other, okay, I see Commissioner Bhatnagar. Any last thoughts?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I wanted to actually emphasize what Commissioner Salem was saying, so maybe bear with me a little bit. I will read off the numbers from the orange curve that you have there. So that's the rolling 12-month average. And that's important to understand because that is all inclusive. It's not separating out residential. It's not separating out data centers. It's all inclusive. That's the beauty about looking at averages here, right? So if I read the number, gigawatt hours for January 2020, which is 2 years ago from now, approximately, right? I read that as, let's say, 310 gigawatt hours. And then I read the number for January 22, 2 years later, this January, let's say that's at 340. So we have grown, let's say, 25 gigawatt hours in 2 years. Let's say 30, just round that off, right? 30 gigawatt hours in 2 years. And so that would mean that in 10 years, we'd multiply that by 5, right? So that would be 30 times 5, 150 gigawatt hours growth in 10 years. You are thinking of going from 750 max to 1100. That's a 400.
Yeah, and that's a peak. When I say 1100, that would be our peak, not necessarily usage, because our load factor is about 80%.
I understand.
Which is a high load factor.
I understand. So what I'm saying is I'm applying that to the average growth, let's say. Let's say the peak growth follows the average growth, let's say. And that's the problem. That's the linear growth model. And the point that Commissioner Lance is making is that this is by definition a nonlinear growth pattern, a parabolic growth pattern. So there is a danger. And I will stop there. Sometimes I think of us human beings as prisoners of linearity. And I think we might be oversimplifying by just being that, right? I'll stop here, but it's not a question, it's just a comment. I think, the growth may be much more than what we might be anticipating because it's nonlinear.
Yep, understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bhatnagar. Yes, the math, plays in here. Any other last comments from staff or from Kevin, yourself?
Look to your left.
No.
It's okay.
Commissioner Lance.
I have one last comment to Kevin and then one to staff. I'm going to throw a hypothetical at you, which is kind of unfair, but it's worth trying. Let's say in the next 2 or 3 or 4 years, residential use doubles, or in 10 years, triples. Do we have the infrastructure able to carry the power to the neighborhoods that are currently served at triple their current capacity or triple their current expected use? Because I still hear and see our trends moving so completely away from alternate energy directly to electricity as the primary source. Even with what we have now, it's going to double, and it's easily could triple in that amount of time. So do we have lines and transformers and all the rest of the infrastructure sufficient to handle that level of increase in the next 10 years? And then if not, how much is it going to cost us, and how are we going to get it fixed?
Yeah, that's a good question. And let's go back to the Sarah substation, the upgrade that we just did. So that used to be, and I'm not going to have the exact numbers here. I'm going off memory, and it's not going to be completely correct. We had one transformer with, I can't remember the number of feeds leaving it. It was either 7, I think it was something like 7. So that transformer was a small transformer. So what we installed is basically we double the size of the transformer, and we added another, and we added double the feeds out of each transformer. So from that substation alone, I feel fairly comfortable that is going to handle what you're talking about. Then I go over to Homestead, where that has 2 transformers. I don't know the number of feeds, but we're going to be going to our new standard size. So those 2 transformers are going to get enlarged, and it's probably like 50%. I'm not exactly positive numbers. Then we're adding another transformer, which is going to give us more feeds that go in. And again, those go into the residential areas in that area. So I feel fairly comfortable about that. Is it going to get us doubled? I'm not positive, but it's something we'll go back and I'll ask our planning engineers what they see and what they do, what the upgrades will actually do in those areas. But those are the 2 areas that would concern me in there. And now in the other area that would be of concern is in the Rivermark area. And I've heard of no issues with any limitation, because that's a newer design area. They're more efficient areas. And I think that is all undergrounded. And I think those substations were already built at the larger capacity that we're going to the standard now. Homestead and Sarah were probably built, the data I looked at there was like 47, 50 years ago. So that was aged infrastructure. So I understand your point. We'll take a look at that. And if I can get an answer to you guys, I will.
Okay. Well, we're on the way now, because there's Homestead Apartments have just started building out their new development, and they're tripling in capacity. So there's a good example of triple right there. So my other comment was to staff. How are we addressing the standards that we've set for new developments to say 15% charging in their parking, or their wiring for EV charging and other amenities that are going to be now electric? Are we keeping up with the growth curve for new developments as we approve the related just now, which is thousands of units overall?
So for new projects, they're subject to our REACH codes, which have those higher electrical vehicle charging stations. So when we get a project in, I think as Rena had mentioned earlier, it goes through our project clearance committee, where we look at those items. And our building division helps us with that, because the REACH codes in our building code. So we do look at that for new projects, and SVP is a part of the process for that review.
Yeah, I think what's the concern that I would have would be that these developments are multi-decade projects, things that are going to last for 20, 30 years. In 20 or 30 years, 15% of the ability, or 15% of the parking of people to charge is going to seem ridiculous, because it's going to be far more than 15% of the residents
the need
in EVs. Yeah. So I hope that we're thinking far enough ahead that these long-term, large-scale projects are able to handle the change. So.
Can I give you a perspective on the related project? So the amount of load they've requested for the development is 27 megawatts for the whole development, with an option for another 6.5 megawatts that they have to select by, I think, 2028. So even that huge development, when you look at the load that they're anticipated, is how it compares to like a data center. Then they have also talked to us about, they're putting solar on, they're looking at battery storage and stuff like that. So they are looking at those items as they go forward.
That's great news. Yeah.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, before I give Kevin his time back? Thank you again.
Well, Chair and Commissioners, thank you very much for letting me come and speak with you. If you have any questions, please let us know. We'll try to get you the answers that you have, or the answers to the questions you have.
Thank you. Very helpful for us. Thanks. Thank you, staff, for enabling. I think this was incredibly purposeful, intentional, and useful for all our future decisions. Related was a context that Kevin brought up, which is very helpful for us to understand then what is in the next wave of projects of similar size. So appreciate the effort. With that, we will now move to the next. Should we close since it's a study session? No, right? Okay, good.
Note and file.
Okay, noted and filed. Thank you. So we now go to the reports of commission, board liaison, and committee members. Am I on the right? Okay, thank you. Any announcements for the commission? I just wanted to take this moment briefly to wish the Indian diaspora and all those celebrating Diwali a very happy Diwali. It is as Santa Clara continues to imbibe, include, and assimilate different cultural diversities. Diwali is a huge festival celebrated not just by the billion-plus population in India, but across the world. Many cities in America, including, I think, federal government is considering holiday. So I'm looking forward to the city of Santa Clara, to give its ability for a day off because it is a significant festival. So again, a very happy Diwali to the community and a joy to be celebrating with everyone here. That's one. I think we had, okay, the next item is Commissioner Travel and Training Reports. I'm looking forward.
Chair, I just wanted to mention that that this is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and commissioners will be receiving an email, and that it is mandatory training. So you will be receiving an email within the next week, and you'll have 3 weeks to complete that training. So just want to make you aware of that.
Thank you. That was helpful. We'll look forward to that training. So we'll move to, as part of the training, Commissioner Travel training reports, request to attend new trainings, or any report outs from past trainings. Commissioner Lance, do you want to go?
This is brutal. I guess I'll have to speak for Commissioner Biagini also. We attended the conference. Oh, you were there as well. Okay, this is not a surprise then. It was sadly disappointing, logistically and content-wise. I think out of the entire multi-day conference, had 3 hours of content that I felt were very valuable out of 4 days, which is a frightening ratio. I think we experienced the majority of the time serious technical difficulties, late starts on the sessions, early finishes. They would literally chop the session off in the middle of a sentence that someone was speaking. 5 minutes of dead air.
The actual APA California conference, just for reference, record.
Right, the California conference, the APA, not the Cupertino conference. That was very good. But the APA conference, it was a single path, a single topic set that you could choose from, no options whatsoever. And unfortunately, some of them were extremely off topic, is what I would say. Important messages, but not what APA is focused on. It was far more on the social aspects, which felt very odd that we were coming together as a group to learn about the latest in trends and laws and legal issues around planning, and not hearing anything about that for 3 of the sessions that we were mandated in. Other than, I don't want to put too many bad words into it, but overall it was sadly disappointing. I think we actually pinged Elizabeth to find out if we could get some money back. When you want your money back from a conference, that's not a good hint that it was a good conference. I'm sure that if we had gone in person, we may have gotten considerably more. But one of the other things they don't realize is this was a California conference. There was no reason to start at 8 o'clock in the morning. I mean, seriously, 8 a.m. brains aren't functioning. You need lots of coffee to keep going. But that's, there were some things involved, and they talked about some of the latest laws passed. And I think it would prefer to have Xander or someone speak to those. I think we'll get more value out of it than what was covered in the sessions.
I'll share my perspectives. I, again, echo the sentiments on the technology and the challenges in trying to focus when we have bad connections, both from them and internally. The value that I got mostly were on the Sunday event and Saturday. Well, Saturday was not so much. Sunday and Monday, Tuesday, I wasn't too impressed, but I got good value from the Saturday and Sunday sessions. I found the California Diversity Summit, which was the evening session, very insightful. It talked about the disturbing legacy of California's sundown towns, which was I think a trend back then was to almost gentrify or segregate populations based on color. And the planning, the land use, if you see, and they cited about many towns, some 300 odd towns in California. I didn't see if Santa Clara was there. I didn't want to go there, but I wanted to highlight that was a very inspiring session in understanding how certain cities now have come openly acknowledging that gentrification had occurred. They apologized to the city for its past, and they took a resolution to rectify for future, which is an open, I think, a bold statement to not brush anything under the rug. They just came out and said, yes, we did this. We are sorry for what we have done. And this is how our city is now going to be in especially diversity and any color discrimination elimination efforts. So I think that was interesting. I found another interesting topic, although it wasn't really land use, in bringing the magic to life of Walt Disney Imagineering. I found that super, super cool, where they were going to create a whole resort experience in Star Wars world. So from the moment you appear, but it is a land use. And so the permitting, the fire life safety requirements, all of that is now an innovation in the planning ground to address those innovative land use proposals, completely out of the blue. But it was very exciting to see, now something new for Disney to look forward to. Like the other sessions, planning with a purpose was on ethics. I had to attend many of this for my ASCP credits, but I agree. It was kind of a letdown, but for $150, I think, compared to the, $750 in person. That's what you get. So, but it was truly, I think next year I would go in person. I just decided that was the best way to experience.
On a positive note, though, the discussion about laying out the park spaces was outstanding.
Yep.
The idea that isolating a park behind tall fences and locked gates and things was disingenuous. It was not serving the purpose of the parks, or having one large asphalt paved space designated a park was completely insane. So to hear them talk about rethinking what it means to have open space and shared space and actually implementing on it was really encouraging. And I think some sections of that maybe we could take, but I'm really reassured that Santa Clara hasn't followed anything like that. Mm-hmm. This is a New Yorkism, I think, that went out of control, but they had outstanding new ideas and new paths to follow. So.
On that fine note, are we having any other new upcoming trainings
Well, yes, actually you are. Just today, something did come, and I'm going to send it via email to all of you.
Okay.
There's a CEQA conference coming up December 15th through the 16th. This is in San Francisco, so in person. Just to give you an idea, so you know, the registration is really anywhere from about 900 to 1,000 per person. I believe that's on a Thursday and a Friday. So I will send this via email to everyone, and we'll have a deadline when to decide. I don't know if we need to take a vote now to expend funds. You know,
Yeah, we can wait
Okay.
for the next meeting.
okay, actually, we have a meeting in 2 weeks, I think, correct. So that just came, so
Nice.
CEQA conference.
Okay. That must be our attorney's most wanted conference. Moving to the next topic, Director of Community Development Reports, Planning Commission budget updates. Staff.
Your budget is still basically at $15,683.
That was also in consideration after the equipment.
Well, we should talk about that real quickly. I sent an email out, and I only heard from Commissioner Salem, so we really only have one item to purchase. It's basically $200 for the new keyboard, so, you know, minus 200 from that, so 15,400 or so.
Okay. And I thought we were going to use some other recycle.
We're going to use a little pen and paint and just paint the numbers on them for you.
Get some white out. Paint it back on.
Sounds great. Okay, moving on. Upcoming agenda items. Staff.
So our next meeting is on November 9th, and I have one item for you at that meeting, and that would be bringing back to you a discussion on land use topics for you to recommend to the City Council for their consideration when they go back to doing their priority setting sessions.
Perfect.
So get your thinking caps on.
City Council actions.
And there are no actions to report.
All right, would we just cause
Chair.
it? Yes. I'm sorry, Commissioner Bhatnagar.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. I had an email conversation with Elizabeth here, and that reminded me that I should bring this up, or she reminded me I should bring this up here. I believe it's the appropriate time. As part of the ILG conference that we went to, Commissioner Salem, Commissioner Huang, and myself, we were there. I had a very good impression of a presentation that somebody called Hannah had done regarding outreach, how communities or people wanting to get good feedback from a diverse group of people, how they do that, right? I had interacted with the personnel of that team, and they have come back with the contact names and so forth. May I propose that we consider giving like a study session to this team to tell us a little bit about how we could improve our outreach whenever we talk about, say, doing surveys for projects and things like that. So that's something I'd like the commission to consider, and maybe to start or ask a study session at some later date. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bhatnagar. Thanks for the feedback on the session. We'll let staff take that into consideration. And with that, do we have a motion to adjourn at 8:32? Do I hear?
Second?
Thank you. Unanimous? Thank you. We adjourned at 8:32. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Ciao.